So I wanted to, Emma, if you're still there, because obviously I was explaining what Orientalism is. So this is an example of an Orientalist painter traveler painting, where if you look at the painting, and so this is very typical. If you look at colonial paintings of North Africa and the Middle East from the French particularly, but also British travelers, they place the people as almost objects, animate or inanimate objects that are part of the atmosphere. They're completely like dehumanized. They're just there because they look pretty, or they look like they're adding mysticism to the environment. And this mentality has gone into like popular culture. Even today, it stays with us. So for example, if you look at, you know, the new Aladdin movie with Will Smith or something, yeah?
Yeah, I want to bring that up as an example.
Yeah, this is everything, most things that involve Arab culture is all kind of mystical and tedious and kind of wishy-washy, not very serious, and just part of a storytelling narrative. And most women in Arab culture, in books or films or movies that portray Arab culture, are just there waiting for a man to emancipate her. So like if you look at, if you read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, it's the same thing, you know, very popular book, but essentially what it comes down to is about some mystical shepherd boy in Morocco traveling to Mecca to find his destiny and all this cliched BS. And then he meets this woman and like kind of gives her a purpose in life. It's just a typical Orientalist colonial attitude that is projected into current culture.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like Jasmine, because she's like the only person that's like different and up, and she's like, I won't be silent, like suggesting everyone else is just like a silent, like every other woman silently listening.
Exactly. And they're forgetting the fact that, like we looked at yesterday in Tunisia, one country that the woman can give the surname to her child, which you can't even do in Britain, yeah? Or for example, you know, they're forgetting the fact that Khadija was the wife of the Prophet, was a very, very powerful individual, very influential individual. The women in Arab society aren't these submissive, sexualized, inanimate objects that are just there to make good poetry in the English, like in Waterstones and W.H. Smiths. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a bit BS.
But can you blame the Europeans for not knowing that, when I think even a lot of Muslims forget that Khadija, you know, she was the Prophet's boss, 15 years his senior. I believe she asked him to marry her. Like, it's very, very
a lot of people bring that up. I don't know. Maybe it's just the Arabs I know, but a lot of them bring it up and praise Khadija.
Yeah, well, that's very lucky that, because I mean, my wife.
They're right to bring it up.
Yeah, they are right to bring it up, because my wife says that one of the most powerful things she could do to kind of assuage some people's concerns about our marriage was to bring up the story of Khadija, because she heard it from a lot of people. Obviously, are you sure you know what you're doing, marrying this quote unquote Gora, because he's 15 years your junior, blah blah blah. And then, but as soon as she brought up the story of Khadija, and I mean, that story had a power for her, so maybe I was just assuming it would for other people too. But I was just to get back to your main point here. I think it's very interesting how this Orientalist view of women has merged so neatly, or segued so neatly, into kind of the war on terror, and that is the narratives that it has constructed about women, because you see it still today, don't you, really, like very, very clearly, that you see women either as these kind of submissive, repressed people under this kind of Islamic misogynistic framework, or they themselves are the extremists. Like either they themselves are the religious extremists, or they are subdued by them. Like it's very binary. Do you guys see that as well?
Yeah, so can you elaborate more before I answer? Can you just elaborate a bit more on that?
No, nothing, just echoing what you said. I was just basically repeating what you said, but trying to get...
The thing is, okay, fine. The thing is, some people actually like that definition, that Orientalist definition of themselves. So if you look at the kind of ISIS women fighters that went to Syria to join their husbands or whatever, they kind of like this whole romantic idea of being this submissive wife and going to a war zone and her husband coming back with a bit of steak and slapping it on the table. Like, do you know what I mean? But the thing is, it completely undermines our own like sense of our own movement to empower and emancipate ourselves as people from post-colonial countries. It's a completely counterintuitive point. And I don't think that Arabs were like that in the Prophet's time. I don't think Arab women were totally submissive. if you look at hadith, you look at narratives from the time, they played a key part in society. I mean, look at the story of Hind, you know, taking somebody she disagreed with, killing them and eating their liver, you know, to make a point out of it. These were powerful women that were setting examples for certain things. They weren't just laying around the house or laying on the couch, you know. It's a bit weird that our own people kind of like to have that imagination of themselves. But this might be an evolutionary thing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe...
Isn't that the prominent theme of anti-colonialism they wrote? Like this idea that people, that an idea can be like a virus. Like you can remove the... You know, it's such a cliche that ideas, you can't kill an idea, it has so much power, blah, blah, blah. But that's the romantic and positive way of looking at it, but it's also the negative way of looking at it in the sense that you can remove the colonial institutions and the colonizer himself even.
Of course.
But the ideas that they spread, once they get into people's minds, like it can take generations to undo that kind of damage.
Exactly. And the ideas they spread, for example, the picture I put up now, if you look at the way that British painters paint themselves, very orderly, very functional, very symmetrical, suit, tie, all of this stuff, and you contrast it with their portrayal of Arabs, which is like lounging around, doing nothing, women just dancing in the middle of a hammam somewhere, you know, that kind of thing. It does, these things add up. And you do, even as a child, I had a mystical view of my own country growing up, because I was raised with all of these like bullshit stories like Aladdin and flipping, what else, you know, Sinbad the Sailor and all this crap. And then you're a 5-year-old and you go back home and stuff, and you see that world in that kind of way. And
did you notice with Aladdin that they I think very intentionally, I mean, I have no evidence of this, but I bet you it was intentional on the part of Disney to place Aladdin in pre-Islamic Arabia. You hear about this? Like it's situated in pre-Islamic Arabia, apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it's in Baghdad, isn't it? Set in Baghdad, yeah.
No, Agrabah is like Agrabah, isn't it? It's supposed to be some made-up city, but it's supposed to. I think you're right. Probably Persia or the Mesopotamia, but they situated it in, or actually, I think Arabia. Like, but it's intentionally vague and vague, but not vague enough as to. The Disney producers were cut clear about that. It was situated in pre-Islamic. You might want to check me on that, but
fine, I'll check. Yeah, I'll check it out. But Ziryab, I just wanted to make a point. When you look at a lot of these Orientalist paintings, you see that there are Black people captured as Arabs. So not necessarily, sometimes they capture them as slaves, but sometimes, like here, for example, they're just part of the kind of decor. They are also Arabs. So I think your point is right about it not just necessarily being an ethnicity, but also a kind of ethno-cultural group as well.
Well, again, it depends on how you define ethnicity. This idea of an essential race or an essential ethnicity, as in something that's unchanging from Moses all the way down to Einstein, in the example of like the Jewish example, I think it's laughable. But the point is, like I just found a paper that I'm going to post into the chat, and it's entitled, it's up to an academic paper. It says, localizing Ashkenazi Jews to primeval villages in the ancient Iranian lands of Ashkenaz. I'm literally just posting it in the chat right now. But the takeaway is this, this is why I mention it. The takeaway is that an analysis of 393 Ashkenazic, Iranian, and Mountain Jews and over 600 non-Jewish genomes demonstrated that Greeks, Romans, Iranians, and Turks exhibit the highest genetic similarity with Ashkenazic Jews. So, like I said, I'm just posting in the chat now. So the idea of an essential ethnicity, I think, is fundamentally problematic. I view ethnicity more to do with like a looser definition of a shared, as you said, like the cultural definition. So a shared language, perhaps, or shared rules, cultural rules, and of that nature. So when it comes to the variant or the kind of makeup of the army of Tariq ibn Zayd, you'll notice in a lot of those drawings from that period, there's going to be a range of quote unquote colors. So it's the thing. I don't think Arab has ever been a static kind of essential race as such. More to do with a culture of shared norms, values, language, and so on. and that's what's borne out, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Can I
agree with you. Yeah, and I'm looking at your article as well. And then you wanted to make a point as well.
Yeah, I was just talking before about like the representation of Muslim women, like in the media is absolutely awful. Like genuinely, they either blow themselves up or like they completely abandon their morals and stuff. And like when it's a Muslim woman, like say if it was anyone else, the whole plot wouldn't be about their religion. But then when there's a Muslim woman in any show, like she's completely like just consumed by her religion. She's not got any other personality or like anything else to her. It's like you can't be a normal.
Or she gets wooed by a white boy.
Exactly, and give everything up. Like no one does that in real life.
What's wrong with that?
Hannah, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to also mention, although Dina Tokyo, I can't back her on anything else, but she did make a point. She mentioned how women are always, like Muslim women are always breaking a stereotype, and it's like, how long are we going to break the stereotype? And like, it's like everything that a Muslim woman does, she does it, and it's like, wow, look at this amazing Muslim woman. She's gone beyond, what she was supposed to be as just like a housewife. Do you know what I mean? And she's actually doing something with her life. And it's
honestly,
just,
like
it's
so
like,
true.
yeah.
And
you kind
there's nothing wrong with it, by the way, Sean. It was just that the way they presented them is that they have to give up where they come from in order to get the white.
Oh right, yeah. No, I was just kidding, man. I was just playing with you.